And so, when you look at impact, so on this team, this year, obviously, offensive analyst LaDainian Washington has moved over to an interim role, coaching the wide receivers, a guy that's has experience at the University of Missouri, has experience, coaching wide receivers both on the field and in the off the field type of role. So he's going to be charged with keeping the wheels on the bus, so to speak. And so we'll see what that looks like. Now I will say I wouldn't bet on the fact that in any capacity that Gundy has the opportunity to return. I mean, I think probably at this point, what's done is done. The decision will be the decision, but I wouldn't completely rule it out based on the outpouring of support that he's received and certainly will continue to receive um, as part of that. As part of that support for him in the system. But let's operate under the assumption that he'll not be asked to return. So there's a couple of other there's impacts obviously to this team, and then obviously recruiting. You if you follow Jaquays Petaway on social media, he was a little shocked and surprised, obviously, as all of us were, and um, looked to be a little bit upset. So I don't know that there. I mean, there's going to have to be some re-recruitment of him without a doubt. Just in terms of, I don't think there's an imminent um, decommit coming. All signs point to him kind of, from what I've heard, him kind of still kind of taking a step back and evaluating the situation and not necessarily making any decisions right now. But you've got him, you've got Anthony Evans, who is scheduled to come in on the 26th, or make his decision on the 26th. And you just got a couple other wide receivers that you're really kind of interested in seeing exactly what happens. So I think recruiting is. I mean, he's a dynamic recruiter. Obviously he was really big on getting that trio of 5 stars into Norman a few years ago with Trajan Bridges, Jaden Hazelwood, and Theo Weiss. So that remains to be seen, but he was a great recruiter. I think when you also look at like I said, moving forward, who's a potential candidate to to get this job long term. I think when you look at it initially, I think the name that comes to people's mind is Malcolm Kelly. As but I think there's some fences that need to be mended particularly between Jerry Schmidt and Malcolm Kelly. I think there's some a little bit of bad blood between those two, just because of just some things, how things kind of went down towards the end of his career at Oklahoma. You've seen D.D. Westbrook is actually out at the Sooners practice today, so I don't necessarily know exactly what to make of that. But he was one of those that also gave an outpouring of support, or maybe it's someone else, or maybe they decide, okay, we'll keep Washington in this interim role, for the season, then identify another guy, postseason, just because of the fact of how difficult it is to find someone at this point in time. So, and you don't want to just get anyone just to get someone. So just because that individual obviously has to learn the offense, and learn the culture and everything that's with this Brent Venables regime. So yeah, so overall, just really I mean, I don't there's so many emotions that kind of go through I mean, frustrating is really not the word, but just a bad day for Oklahoma football last night and even today, and it'll be something that that lingers and goes forward. I think you see, you've seen this a little bit in some of the clips that I've seen. I think you've got a little bit of a pissed off football team right now. I don't know where that if there's any anger that, or it's just intense, or what it is. But there's just a couple of situations where the kids have already had to get separated, and some of their what they call their W drill, which is fairly similar to the Oklahoma drill. Um, so yeah. So Blake, thanks for the question. How bad will the receiving core be shaken throughout the year, and how bad will this affect the offense as a whole? Hopefully, this kid gets hit harder than usual in practice and no. I think Blake. I think, as I mentioned before, I think kids are very, very resilient these days. I think it's not as. Um, I don't think. I mean, yeah, there's going to be a transitional period right now. I think early on, but I think just seeing how this may go forward will be interesting. But I think you get the dust settle over a few days, and I think the kids will start being the kids will start moving past this and understanding. Yeah, it's a horrible situation, but at the end of the day, they've got a job to do, and they've got to find a way to move forward. So. TR, thanks for the question. How do you think this affects recruiting? It absolutely, sorry, let me get myself untongue tied. It absolutely affects recruiting. So I'd mentioned a couple of guys, Jaquays Petaway, who, I think it's a little bit of a wavering commitment. I would anticipate. So I think Oklahoma will to do a good job and talking through that with him, and trying to, reaffirm his commitment to Oklahoma at this point. And so, it's going to continue to affect, obviously probably won't, even to a certain degree, the 2024 and maybe even 2025 kids that Cale was in on. But I think more so these 2023 kids as well. I think Anthony Evans is another guy that has been. I think he's making his commitment, or making his announcement, I should say, on the 26th. But I think that'll be very intriguing to watch, to see how this impacts that in certain ways. So I wanted to skip to this comment or this question here. He's still committed to Oklahoma, so there's nothing to get back, unless something's broken in the last 30 minutes that I've not seen. But he's still, he's still committed to Oklahoma. He's not. He's still got the University of Oklahoma on his Twitter bio. So he's still there. Yeah, he did change his photo, but he's still got Oklahoma. So I think it's very much in flux, but I don't think there's a decommitment that's happened right now. So and I think there's another question here on some of the locks. So we've seen a couple. Vasic or Vasic was one of them. I'm not sure the pronounce it. I think it's Vasic was one of them. I think you've got a couple of more. A couple of more coming. You've got Makari Vickers. Let's start. Let me step back a bit. August 15th, you got Jacoby Johnson. He was I believe he was one of the locks. I think he makes that decision to Oklahoma on the 13th. You've got a couple of commitments on the 26th. You've got Evans, as we spoke about. I think everything I've heard has been trending Oklahoma. Will be interesting to see how that is impactful over the next 2.5 weeks. I think you see, and then you've got Makari Vickers, who is a guy. So I don't think Evans was a lock, but I do think Vickers and Jacoby Johnson were locks. So, and then I think you've got Jordan Raynaud, who was one of the locks. I think he commits probably in the October-November timeframe. And I've heard differing opinions, so to speak, on DJ Hicks. I've heard some people that feel like, yeah, he was a lock coming out of that then I've heard some people it's not necessarily a lock, but it's pretty close to a lock. So I think all signs point to him still committing in that December January timeframe. However, I've heard some rumors that he may be interested in committing a little bit earlier than that. So keep an eye on that. So I don't know necessarily that he's a complete lock yet, but we'll see. We'll see what that looks like. So Ryan, how do I feel personally about Cale getting pushed out? If you're willing to talk about it, I don't think the punishment fits the crime. I think it's hard, for me as a white man um, to have a solid opinion, one way or the other. I think you have to put a lot of things into consideration in terms of the 23 years of service that he's provided to this university. With the outpouring of support that he has received from former players, even former coaches. Bob Stoops came out and made a positive comment about him and what he's given to the University of Oklahoma. But I think personally, if you have buy-in within the team, if you have buy-in within the coaches, if it was a very consistent, united front that yes, this was a one-time slip and a mistake that shouldn't overcome or over shouldn't overarch, so to speak, the 23 years that he's been exemplary, then yeah, I tend to think that he probably should have been allowed to stay. Probably should have been something that should be handled internally within the program, the football program, and not at the administrative level. But we don't know everything that's happened. Maybe there's some that just really did not want him to be part of this team going forward, knowing what that if you've got dissension within the locker room, then I think the best decision the decision that was made is probably the best decision. Um, but if you don't have division, within the locker room, and everybody is um, very much on the same front, on the same field, just in terms of just the support or lack thereof, then you know there seems to be a little bit something that we're missing that's part of the story that um, maybe we're not aware of. So that's kind of my view on that. Um, anyways, I'll go ahead and shut this down if there's not any other um, any other questions or comments. Hope as we get to Friday we can um, we can move forward, um, and talk about the team and instead of let's not linger on this as much as we as much as we can. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just a sad period for University of Oklahoma overall. There's no winners um, in this situation, um, but yeah, no, I think absolutely. We'll see how things go. If I were to make a prediction, I think based on August 8th, I think that Damian Washington's probably going to be your on-field coach for the remainder of the year. Um, I think you could see somebody like D.D. Westbrook be brought in as an analyst. It's just too much of a distraction. I think at this time, it's already a distraction a little bit, so to speak. But I think even more so, I think it's a bad distraction, for Venables to take away from his focus on this team, to go and interview coaches and things like that right now, being so close to the season. So I think you'll see him be, and maybe it's still a a temp, an interim position, but I think he'll probably be your on-field wide receiver coach for this year, and then we'll see what happens in the offseason. I could be wrong. They may bring someone in, but that's just my feel right now. So thanks for all of you guys that came in and came and chatted. I think we had almost 200 on the line here on a Monday morning. So appreciate you guys so much for everything. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. And we're almost at 5,000 subs right now for this individual channel. So please share this. Come follow me at Jason Ray One. Let's try to get. I'd love to get this. If we get it, could get up to 5,000 subs by the time football season starts. First game starts. That would be that would be outstanding. So thanks for your support as always, and Boomer Sooner. God bless.